Good afternoon. I hope you are having a wonderful Thursday, which hopefully for most of you is like a Friday, since tomorrow is Good Friday. We have great information for you today. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about because it is such a misconception that taking mortgages on investment real estate is a bad form of debt. And one of the biggest things that I work with my investors on is understanding the power of using debt to build wealth and to increase your assets, your cash flow, and all those other things that we talk about. And it's hard because there's this old mentality that debt is so dangerous and that debt is negative and that you should pay cash for everything. And so, what we're going to focus on today is talking about good debt versus bad debt and how you can use the right type of debt to help you get to the next level in your financial journey. After this, on April 4th, we are going to have Protecting Your Property, my 7 insurance strategies to build a profitable portfolio. And that's going to air at both 12 and 8 o'clock. This is one you're not going to want to miss if you have rental property. There's a lot of misconceptions about insurance and what type of policies and from everything from pets and pet exclusions all the way to not knowing for a few dollars a month you can cover all of the pipes in your home and the lines in your home against breakage. So we're going to have some great strategies here for you, and then I'm going to provide you with the contact information for my top insurance company recommendations for insuring properties as well. After that, we're going to have our short-term rental webinar on April 10th, and then our big wealth and rentals conference on April 17th, and then after that we'll have our big summer schedule coming. We've got just great stuff coming up for you guys as we move into prime season. As always, if you've missed a webinar, you can catch the recording on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast channels. On May 1st, we're going to have our virtual mastermind. This is a deep dive breakdown in a small group environment to look at your portfolio, your financial situation, and how to excel you into the future. These are very useful if you have no idea what to do next, or if you've been sitting on properties for a long time, or if you are trying to get out of your job, trying to retire, trying to get to that next level. You know, most of the people that we work with are all preparing for retirement, but some people are just trying to pay for their kids' private school or be able to take an extra vacation a year. Everyone has their own goals. And so these virtual masterminds are a great way for you to talk about what it is you're trying to do and for us to lay out the framework and the steps for you to be able to get there with other like-minded investors who are on the same journey. And these masterminds are just, they're really a neat tool, and it's a great way to kind of jumpstart the next phase of your journey financially. And then we'll have our live mastermind, and that will be April 28th at 11 a.m. This is on our big spring fling weekend, and tickets are available now. We do have a few spots left. Our spring fling is going to have a large property bus tour on the 26th. This will be one of our charter buses. We have a few spots left there. We have our spring mixer event at our personal home, and that is on the 27th in the evening. That will start right around dinner time, and then it ends when it gets dark, and we'll do our fireworks show. And then again on the 28th, that is that in-person mastermind I just talked to you about. So that big property tour, you can use this QR code to register, or of course you can go to our social media or our website to sign up for that. This bus tour I will be on. This will be a big one, and we're going to have some really great guests that we're going to get to meet as we visit some of these top areas that we love. Upcoming property tours, we have April 5th, we have the April 26th, and then we have May 3rd, and we'll be continuing with twice a month for the rest of summer. These run about 10 to 4, and it is $50 per ticket. Before I begin, everything we're going to talk about today is based on all of my years of experience, not only owning and operating a real estate investment and management firm, but also being an investor myself. I am one tool in your toolbox, and my goal is to educate you and to connect you with others who can assist you on your journey and help you set up your future. And what that looks like is what model is going to work for you and your financial goals and your financial situation. And although we believe that our model and the way that we do things is the best, of course, not every model is a fit for every person. And so the more that we can educate you and empower you to go do these things for yourself, the better that you're going to be able to make financial decisions, not only here in North Texas, but also across the United States and the world in your investment journey. A couple market updates for you. We've got obviously lots of great news happening throughout the area. DFW is just growing incredibly quickly. So we've got some new stats for you. We had historic growth And these numbers just came out, our census numbers, and Dallas saw an increase of over 152,000 residents last year. That was between mid 22 and mid 23. That's nearly triple the amount of residents added to the number 3 metro, Atlanta. Of course, you will see that Texas is dominating this list. Texas is dominating pretty much every list, and DFW now sits in an estimated population of 8.1 million. Speaking of growth, the top growing counties, we had 8 of the top 10 spots here in Texas, 3 of which were here in North Texas. Collin County, where I live, ranked number 2 by counties in growth, with more than 36,000 people added between July 22, July 23. Of course, they beat out dozens of states in growth between all of this data. And the thing I want to remind you is, of the 1.5 million people moving to North Texas in the coming few years, they anticipate that half of them, 750,000, will be moving to Collin County, which means there's going to be a lot of pressure on all of these counties around Collin County, ones like Grayson County, ones like Hunt County. Of course, that's one of the main reasons we are targeting these areas, not just because of their extreme growth from their employment growth, but also because of the pressure moving into these areas because of Collin County getting so saturated. Dallas millionaires, they just announced this list, and pretty incredible when you look at the trend of what's happened here. Dallas increased the number of millionaires here by 75%. We are now number 4 in the nation. That would be our second time at number 4. Of course, we are the 4th largest metro in the United States, and now the 4th largest concentration of millionaires. Austin was number 1 at 110, but has many fewer millionaires overall. US ranks the number 1 in the world in liquid wealth, $67 trillion. Millionaires 5.5 million, and billionaires over 780. Pretty incredible numbers. And then, of course, Dallas is one of the top markets for paying rent. We are a top market in Texas and among the top markets in the US. We set a record for both Dallas area and nationwide numbers. And so you can see here 96.2% of Dallas renters keep up with payments. Pretty incredible, especially when you consider the affordable and inventory housing crisis that we are seeing. So, talking about Dallas a little bit more, we are the number 2 data center market in the United States. All of this really leads into what we're talking about with the extreme employment growth here and the needs of these companies coming in. You'll see that there's over 917 megawatts of data storage happening here in DFW. 96% of our region's data center space is occupied, which is pretty incredible given that commercial real estate is one of the first things that we've seen affected since interest rates went up. There are millions of square feet of space in development, and that space is worth several $billions. So pretty incredible things happening here on the commercial standpoint as well. Another partnership that we see and we talk a lot about here is DFW and Walmart. If you've heard me talk about Gainesville and the Walmart distribution centers, it's really just an incredible partnership because we are a major distribution hub because of the highways that run through us, the fact that we're due north of where the ports are here at the border in Texas. So 156 Walmart and Sam's Club just in DFW, more than any other market in the United States. We have a next generation supply chain, which is based here out of Dallas. 99% of a million plus square feet distribution centers handled by automated systems. It's pretty incredible. I actually have one of my friends whose sons works at the distribution center over the logistics of all of this. And obviously he loves it and they've been great to him. He just relocated to another one of their centers, but it's pretty incredible seeing the operation that Walmart and Sam's Club has and the money that they put into the people running these systems. It's really pretty incredible. DFW suburbs are growing exponentially. Of course, housing permits are up year over year, even with the increased interest rates. And as you'll see here, all of these areas are North Collin County and Southern Grayson County. Anna is up 525%. McKinney, where I live, is up 226%. Princeton is up 153%. And Sherman is up 107%. So these are your suburbs that are hugging the Grayson County and the Hunt County lines. And then, of course, Sherman is in Grayson County. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, well, I'm surprised that Sherman's percentage isn't higher with all the job growth and things coming into the area, and you would be right. When we talk about the housing shortage, we talk about these areas where people can build further south and charge a lot more money, make a lot more money, the same reason we have the apartment housing crisis in Grayson County and a little bit in Hunt County as well. So very interesting things that we are still seeing that trend of focusing on the more expensive areas of Collin County, which is really going to create that supply issue that already exists in Grayson County. McKinney announced a massive music venue. This is actually right up the street from me, called the Sunset Amphitheater, a $220 million open air venue. More than 20,000 spectators will be able to attend the shows here. They'll do between 50 and 55 shows. It's going to create more than 1,300 jobs, a $3 billion expected economic impact, and it'll be opening by 2026. This is not far from the McKinney Airport with the expansion that it's got going on. And obviously, what we are seeing on this kind of northern Collin County side is all of the growth of the shopping and the restaurants and the recreational things for the people to be able to do here in the northern side of the Metroplex, because this is where the growth is happening. Of course, it's happening everywhere, but this is that heightened all eyes on this area. And so I think this is just the first of many announcements we will continue to see with all of this recreational type activity happening. Some really neat facts here. They're going to use grass cooling technology to help concerts in 105-degree heat feel like it's 80 or 85 degrees, which if you've ever been to Texas, it gets hot in summer, and that's when most of our concerts are. So really, really neat idea that they're doing. And then McKinney was chosen because of its, quote, aggressiveness in getting the project. McKinney is experiencing astronomical growth. All the areas around McKinney are experiencing that growth. And McKinney, I do believe, is going to be one of the new major hubs of North Texas. We've seen that with the growth, not only from the highways here, but from the recreation and the commercial real estate here. The airport, which even when it didn't pass, they still started the expansions and other work at the airports to increase what's happening there. I've got the jets flying over me all day now. So it's a very, very interesting prospect when you look at what's happening in McKinney and how that's going to have wide-reaching effects to all of these areas we are talking about. And then, of course, long-term growth strategy with Sherman is something that's on everybody's mind, and especially people who live in Sherman, because their city is completely transforming. So they've got more than 5,000 jobs coming just as part of the Texas Instruments and Global Wafer headquarters. They released a survey to help plot out the number of homes needed. There are 2,000 homes already built, 4,000 more in review. Sherman ISD is expecting 10,000 students by 2030. Absolutely incredible. And they expect they have only 1 year to make adjustments to try to catch up from where they are right now. Of course, there's a massive housing shortage coming. It's only going to get worse when we have these programs and different businesses that are going to be opening throughout Grayson County. You've got the two massive developments happening on Texoma. You've got the big development that's going to be the housing development built on the other side of Denison. Two of those projects are slated to double the population of Denison alone. Just incredible things happening in Grayson County, which is why we love that area so much. Excited to announce we have all new city data pages for you, including economic highlights, things to do, recent news, video tours, demographic data, and so much more. You can find all of that on our website. Of course, you can use these QR codes here. If you're watching this live, you're going to get a replay of this sent to you where you can go back and pull these as well. And more city spotlights are going to be coming in your email for other cities we will be featuring in the coming weeks as well. There's also a North Texas City Tour update, our video tours for Denison, Sherman, Bonham, Maybank, and Greenville. So if you haven't watched these to see the incredible growth and things happening in these areas, you can use this QR code here, or of course you can always go to our website and we'll have that up for you as well. Okay, let's get started. Debt Decoded. Let's talk about mastering the strategy of good debt versus bad debt and how you can use that to build your real estate portfolio. For those of you who don't know me, my husband and I are avid real estate investors. We started our real estate firm back in early 2006. We own just over a $40 million portfolio. I have lots of businesses now, but all of them relate to real estate. We speak all over the United States on TV and radio and in person, helping others learn our model of real estate. And I've been doing that since I was 18. I'm born and raised in the DFW area, as is my husband. I was actually born and raised in Dallas. And really, it's just an incredible, incredible thing to be able to work with my best friend and be able to do something that I love so greatly. And so very, very blessed for what I get to do on a day-to-day basis. And my favorite thing, of course, is bringing this information to you and teaching and mentoring. So what you should expect from today is we're not giving you legal advice, especially to those who might be suffering from what we'll later call bad debt. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about bad debt, and I'm going to give you some strategies to help bad debt. But This is not legal advice. You want to make sure some of these ideas that I give you, that if you are in that situation, that you discuss that with your CPA, you discuss that with your attorney, you discuss that with others in your life to make sure that it's the right path for you. It's also important to realize that every single circumstance is unique and strategies may not be suitable for everyone listening today. Of course, you can always schedule a consult call with me and we can talk through your specific situation, and lots of people do that. I have many, many people who I've helped over the years who were in a bad debt situation who now are out of that situation and investing, but obviously every situation is unique. There's no guarantees that good debt that we suggest you take on is going to lead to good results. However, it has for us, and that's what's helped us curate our $40 million portfolio. What we do and what we've done and what we do for others would not be possible without the power of leveraging. What we're going to talk about are the lessons that we've learned. We're going to talk about the mistakes that we've seen, and I'm going to give you my best, most general advice that is going to reach the majority of you. But if you have a unique situation, again, I encourage you reach out and I'd be happy to speak with you one-on-one about how I can help you. We're going to define what good and bad debt are. We're going to talk about how to leverage good debt, and then we're going to talk about the best practices when dealing with debt. So let's start with defining what debt is. Debt is something that's typically money that is owed or due, or it's a state of being under obligation to pay or repay someone or something in return for something received. So pretty general description of debt. But when we normally hear debt, what we think of are student loans, credit cards, monthly bills, or interest rates, which basically means nothing good, right? That's the old adage that debt is bad. So what do we mean when we say good debt? The benefits of debt are wide reaching. Investors, we all know that debt can be good in many ways because it can be a tool for wealth creation and growth. So let's go over some examples of how it can be advantageous. First, leveraging. Debt allows investors to multiply their returns on investments, and I'm going to have a whole section on this later. Access to assets is really one of the biggest things that we see with debt because it allows you to take on a project or afford a property that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And so it allows you to have access to potential growth and potential profits that otherwise you wouldn't have. And of course, it's a hedge against inflation. That's a big one right now. Debt taken out at a fixed rate isn't affected by inflation. And we talk about this a lot, that the dollar devalues and that, money in the bank is losing value every single day. Whereas when you put it into real estate and into debt, it continues to have that hedge against inflation so that you're not devaluing. In fact, it's actually appreciating over the term. And so very, very powerful way to hedge against inflation and to build wealth. When we talk about the benefits of debt, there's really three that we look at. Of course, tax advantages are a big one, and that's something that the more income that you have and the more properties that you have, the bigger that advantage is going to be, because interest paid on investment-related debts is tax deductible. And of course, in addition to that, when you take on the debt, that debt is going to allow you access to other tax benefits like depreciation and other things that you would not have otherwise. And the more that you leverage, the more that you take on debt to buy those, the more you're going to have, and the more then you're going to have the benefit of that. Asset appreciation is a huge one. Assets purchased through debt will appreciate, increasing your overall wealth. And of course, when we look at the last 81 years, only 7 years of 81 have either been flat or down. And so there is no greater and more stable investment than the investment in real estate. Cash flow management is a huge one because debt can help you with your cash flow by spreading that out over an asset's cost over time. So you're going to have a lower monthly amount that is being exposed across every property in terms of what your exposure is. And we're going to talk more about this later as well. When we talk about explaining debt, we have to always say there is a risk. So there's things that you should know before you take on any debt. When we talk about the characteristics of debt, we're going to talk about things like a loan amount, an interest rate, a term or maturity date, a payment schedule, and security or collateral. These are the basics that we're going to want to consider anytime we're looking at taking on debt. But we specifically want to look at the purpose, the risk, and the potential returns of the debt we are taking on, because typically these are what differentiate good debt from bad debt. When we look at good debt, the purpose of good debt is to leverage investments, which allows you to have long-term goals, which you can meet while limiting the initial capital outlay. So that's that lower exposure we're talking about. And when we look at the purpose of bad debt, the purpose of bad debt is to fulfill immediate wants or desires rather than focusing on the long term. Sometimes it's an immediate necessity. Sometimes it's not something we can control, but it is still something that is an immediate need, not a wealth building tool. Good debt, like real estate, is going to have appreciation over time, creating a degree of security for investors and lenders alike to reduce the risk. Bad debt is typically going to be high risk because the acquired assets don't generate income or appreciate over time, and generally going to be much more expensive and be a hit on your bottom line instead of growing your income. The potential return of good debt can see high returns, and that's through leveraging, and that allows you as investors to diversify your portfolio and your wealth. Whereas bad debt is going to have little to no potential return and might even result in financial loss. Mortgages for rental properties are a great example of good debt. Rental income from the tenants can help cover your mortgage payments and expenses, and the property will appreciate over time. Real estate development loans are also a great example. Borrowing money to do renovations or repairs can allow you to manufacture a higher selling price. That's where you get that equity capture when you're doing that type of model. Of course, that comes with its own inherent set of risks, but today we're just looking at this from a debt perspective. HELOCs, a home equity line of credit, is a tool many of my clients use to have money that is taken out of your primary home at a reduced rate. Of course, we do not recommend refinancing your primary rate, which is likely very low. But if you have a lot of equity, you can do a HELOC. They're a great tool. We're going to have a whole other webinar focusing on HELOCs coming up soon. But homeowners can borrow against the equity in their home to invest further. And then, of course, government-sponsored affordable housing loans like FHA, VA, USDA, they have majorly favorable terms for real estate investors if you're doing a type of property that allows these types of loans, or if you have an assumable loan of this type. One of the things that we see a lot is in the multifamily sector, Fannie and Freddie, but you also can have government-sponsored type loans for that as well. So lots of opportunity there for those who are working in that model. Now, when we talk about the examples of bad debt, one of the most common ones I see is high interest rate credit cards. Using a credit card to finance real estate investments or anything can rack up high interest rates very quickly. And people get stuck in the 0% interest trap where you're constantly balance transferring to try to stick at the 0%. You're using that balance transfer fee, which usually is 2 or 3%, and thinking that you're sitting in a good situation. But the problem is a few things. Number one, it affects your credit significantly because it doesn't look at it the same as it would a mortgage or a personal loan. And in addition to that, it's going to have a higher DTI when you're looking at financing and doing other leveraging to help build your portfolio in real estate and other avenues. So there's a lot of danger in credit card debt, but mostly it's because people continue to rob Peter to pay Paul and move that debt back and forth until eventually you get to a point where there is no 0% balance transfer. You've got this massive debt amount, and a lot of people come to me in that situation paying astronomical amounts on credit cards that they don't have any ability to pay off. Using lines of credit are very similar. Sometimes we see people that use those to fund vacations, luxury items, recreational properties. That's all bad debt. Personal loans for luxury expenses should be avoided. Now, where we do recommend and we see personal loans is when someone is sitting on a lot of credit card debt that has a higher interest rate that's paid off over a shorter period of time in terms of the responsibility. A great tool is to go take that credit card debt and refinance that into being paid off by a personal loan, which has a longer amortization schedule, a lower interest rate, and does not affect your credit the same way. So that's one of the tools that we use with people. Speculative investments are another example of bad debt. Taking on risky things that you haven't researched can result in significant financial loss. And then, of course, payday loans, cash advances, which, these are extremely usurious type loans, but borrowing through these to cover short-term needs can spiral out of control because, of course, the majority of what you're paying is actually the interest and the fees. So again, if you find yourself in this type of situation, the best thing that you can do is try to go get a personal loan. Now, some things are good debt or bad debt, right? And so it really depends on what your situation is. A great example of this is interest-only mortgages. Depending on your situation, interest-only mortgages can be good or bad debt, and this can particularly affect your cash flow. A lot of people go into interest-only mortgages because they want to increase their cash flow, but they're doing so in linear and more unstable markets where the value is not raising. In a market like North Texas, we do have investors in high interest rate climates go into interest-only mortgages because it increases the cash flow, especially for those that are trying to exit jobs or come up with extra money for paying for a kid's college or something like that. But you have to understand the inherent risks of that. Personal loans are another example of that. You probably already figured this was coming after what I already talked about, but they can be good or bad debt because consolidating credit card debt into a personal loan spreads it out further and you can help your credit. But taking a personal loan to fund luxury items would be considered an example of bad debt. So bad debt, of course, can lead to bad credit. And so most people who come to me that are having credit issues, it started with a trend of bad debt. We have fewer financing options, higher borrowing costs, limited opportunities, and an impacted reputation. This old adage that it says it takes money to make money, well, it also takes good credit to have good options. And so it's very important that we do everything we can do as real estate investors and just, consumers in general to keep our credit score as high as possible. The cost of bad credit is significant because it will affect everything from your utility deposits to your interest rate on your car loans, interest rate on student loans. There's so many things that are affected when you do not have strong credit. And I don't want any of you falling into that trap of bad debt or bad credit. So right now we're going to focus on how to ensure you take on good debt and learn how it can help you. The number one way debt is going to help you is through leverage. So we're going to break that down briefly as a concept. When we leverage, the strategic use of borrowed funds is really one of the biggest misconceptions that I see. Again, going back to, there are lots of educators who are out there saying that everything should be purchased in cash and you should not be buying investment properties. What you should be doing is socking it all away because that cash is going to pay for you in retirement. Well, I think hopefully the last few years of this inflationary market has shown us that that's just not the case. That in reality, we have to be preparing for our future and preparing for our retirement with income that is going to continue to come in once we retire. Obviously, I hope most of you understand that the government is not going to take care of us in old age. And so that is a responsibility that lays on our shoulders. So that strategic use of borrowing funds to buy properties or to make larger investments than what you could do on your capital alone allows you to start this process. The idea is that you're using a small amount of equity to buy now to cash in on a larger portion of the purchase price later. One of the biggest examples of this is appreciation. When somebody is buying a rental property, you can either, let's say, leverage at 25% down and buy 4, or for the same amount of cash, you can buy 1. But when we have 4 properties appreciating, that, let's say, a $200,000 property, if that property is appreciating at 5% a year, that's $10,000 of appreciation a year on that property. However, if you were to leverage into 4 properties, well, now you'd be making $40,000 a year in appreciation instead of just the $10,000 a year. And the same thing works for your depreciation schedule for real estate on straight line depreciation. So, single family assets depreciate over 27 and a half years. So if you have a $200,000 basis divided by 27 and a half years, what we're talking about is most people are going to have depreciation on a typical rental property somewhere between $5,000 and $9,000 a year. But if you leverage to buy 4 times as many, well, now instead of $5,000 to $9,000 a year, you've got that same amount times 4. So there's a lot of benefits of leveraging to increase property count. And of course, I have many webinars talking about that. But one of the ways that people don't think about it is it's really the power of taking on that good debt that allows you to do that. And so that's really important that we understand that when we're looking at good debt versus bad debt, it's about what is the debt doing for you. Some of the advantages of leveraging, like we talked about, are those increased returns. But portfolio diversification is a big one as well. You're spreading your risk across more assets. If you have one property that goes vacant or has a repair issue, then you're totally out of luck, right? That one property isn't performing. And so at that moment, you have nothing. But if you have that risk spread across those 4 properties in my example, or when interest rates drop and we're doing 20% down across 5 properties, one little thing is not going to really affect your bottom line the same way. Of course, it's a preservation of capital. I already talked about the tax benefits and increased cash flow. So basically all of the things that we like. Leveraging is one of our favorite things. And of course, I just did an entire webinar on just leveraging. So if you didn't watch that, you can use this QR code here and go rewatch that. It was a great webinar and it goes into this in depth. Now, let's talk about maximizing returns, because borrowing funds for a rental property gives you multiple income streams. You have the appreciation, the tax benefits, and the cash flow. And that cash flow is broken down into the active cash flow you get on a monthly basis, but also your principal pay down, paying down your mortgage, which on a traditional 20% down mortgage on a 30-year amortization by itself is a 5% cash on cash return a year before we even look at regular cash flow, tax benefits, any of that appreciation. Debt allows you to purchase more properties by nature, creating more opportunities and diversification. And that can help with your risk reduction, the stability of your property portfolio, adaptability, and knowledge. So these are all benefits of having more property and using the good debt in leveraging. When we talk about preservation of capital, what we're looking at is rather than tying all your money up in one property, that debt allows you to acquire several and spread your risk. You've seen our slides, I'm sure, where you can see the power of going from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. Well, of course, this similar model follows in our 1031 exchange 2 to 6 year model, right? Everything that we do boils down to a few simple principal concepts. So not only does the model do that, but so does leveraging. And so it all kind of comes back to the same home things, the same few topics that we talk about on an ongoing basis. But also keeping some of your own money on hand also allows you capital for things like unforeseen opportunities and emergency situations where you don't find yourself in that cycle of bad debt. Interest payments on mortgage loans are also tax deductible, so it's not like you're just throwing this money away. You may qualify for more benefits, including, like I mentioned, depreciation, especially if you are or work to become a real estate professional. If you don't know about that, I just taught a webinar on this as well, and you can view that here. So now that you know the difference and the kind of understanding and description of good debt, let's talk about the strategies that you need to put them into action. When we finance rentals, the number one way you benefit from good debt is doing this, buying more and more rental properties using the leveraging that you have available. And by using the additional equity and capital you've gained by leveraging, you can acquire more and more properties. And of course, more and more properties are growing with appreciation and growing with principal pay down. And so you also can do the cycle of the 2 to 6 year even faster. So this is the entire idea we talk about behind our doubling process. We have a flow chart here for you to walk you through what that looks like, so you can download that at the QR code here. You can also finance to get the capital that you need for renovation and house flips. This can even be for your personal home. So to get more returns on your investment, we can do things like this. And that's the benefit of good debt and the options for good debt as opposed to having to use bad debt to do that instant gratification type situation. A bigger portfolio, of course, means more stability, less risk, and growth opportunity, and most important of all, more income. Expanding your portfolio with leveraging allows you to increase the portfolio faster than you could, and it allows you to do so faster with equity growth. When we talk about refinancing and restructuring, if you're already leveraging, it basically means that refinancing your loans might have a huge impact on your wealth. Especially right now, I've been pretty vocal about the fact that any of us that take on loans right now in this higher interest rate climate, we're going to be refinancing when rates come down. And that allows you to have a better rate, which leads to lower payments and thus more income. One of the things you hear a lot of us say right now is date the rate, marry the home, that you can always go and refinance a high rate, but you can't manufacture lower housing prices again once they grow. And so that kind of adage is what we're talking about here. Now let's think you buy a property for $200,000 using the same number I used earlier. You put 20% down, that's $40,000, and you finance 80%, that's a $160,000 loan. But that property appreciates at 5%, which is that conservative estimate we're talking about. Your ROI is not just 5% of the $40,000 you paid, but rather 25%, the $10,000, because it's based on the entire purchase price. That's the power of leveraging. So having a lot of investment properties through the power of leveraging benefits your cash flow. We talk a lot about, though, how cash flow isn't everything. But even if you're getting a slim return cash flow wise on a property right now, it multiplies over and over and over again when you leverage many properties. And then, of course, when interest rates come down, you can refinance. But if you have one property and it has a major repair issue again, that's likely to hurt your total income between repair costs and impacted cash flow because everything you have is in that one property. So having many properties, and if one of them needs a repair, it's much less of an impact on your overall financial situation. So while leveraging has all of these benefits we've talked about, it's also important to stay responsible and mitigate risks. Some ways that you can do that are maintaining conservative debt to equity ratios, which means that you make sure you put enough money down on each property, ensuring adequate cash reserves in your bank account or wherever you keep your liquidity, and doing your due diligence before taking on debt. So by managing your debt prudently, you can minimize your risk and you also can protect your portfolio. If you don't manage your risk carefully, you may enter that world of bad debt. Now let's talk about how to avoid those pitfalls. A common pitfall of bad debt is succumbing to high interest rate credit cards, cash advances, payday loans, and unsecured debt. So make sure you are using the right lender because there is generally always an option beyond using one of those 4 avenues. Our top lender that we recommend for real estate investing, and really in general, is Third Coast Bank, but specifically for real estate, Willie Merritt is who we recommend, and this is who I personally use. They also have a commercial lending department, so like for me in my portfolio, I use them for my personal homes, I use them for many of my investments. They have done company vehicles, all sorts of things for me. Third Coast is just fantastic. But Willie is absolutely amazing. And he's the one that has that 7-year, 30-year product that I talk about that's so wonderful with reduced rates right now. So this is how you can contact Willie. So bad debt habits can be formed if you're financing things like vacations or luxury items or recreational properties. The solution is personal use of debt. So to avoid this pitfall, you want to make sure that you prioritize your discipline and you focus on long-term goals. Borrowing money for investments includes unproven markets, speculative investments, and low margin of error properties, and that's what can lead to serious financial losses. So it all goes back to being educated. One of the reasons we believe so heavily in offering free education. These high risk ventures really happen when you don't know where, who, what, or why you're investing in a product. Obviously, investing in a proven market like North Texas is one way that you can hedge that loss. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're seeking counsel and leaning on your team. You can book a consult call with me, doing education like listening to classes like this. There are so many people out there that you can listen to. I encourage you, learn lots of different models, listen to lots of experts. Just make sure the experts are out there living and doing what they teach. There's so many people out there that teach and talk, but they aren't actually doing it. Poor cash flow management is bad cash management, and that can include missing payments, late fees, lacking reserves, and that all can leave an investor in a cycle of debt. So the solution to avoid that pitfall is developing budgeting skills and making sure you have reserves. I always recommend at least 6 months per property, and of course that includes your personal mortgage as well. Over leveraging or borrowing beyond your means can also increase your financial risk and strain your resources, as well as cause significant stress. Remember the old saying, all good things in moderation. And also maintaining good debt to equity levels will help you here. When we're getting out of debt, there are many strategies to get out of debt. That includes better budgeting, increasing your income, and forming repayment strategies like the personal loan strategy that I talked about earlier. These are the obvious ways, but not the only ways. You can also do things like negotiating with your creditors. Everything can be negotiated, including interest rates, repayment schedules, and even the amount owed. And then, of course, you can refinance or consolidate debt. A credit card payment has worse terms than a personal loan, for example, so it may benefit you to consolidate that way. I've seen people use HELOCs, personal home refinances, vehicle loan refinances also to accommodate helping get out of credit card debt. As always, seek professional advice, legal, tax, and financial. And remember, when you're assessing debt, the best thing you can do is prioritize long-term success. Look at the long-term picture in addition to the short-term situation. My final note is no investing happy ending was made in a day, not even ours. But keeping your eyes on the prize will ensure long-term success. If you're not a member of our Wealth and Rentals Facebook group, please join. It's free. You can ask questions, learn from other investors' questions. There's lots of local market and nationwide experts in the group answering your real estate and other financial questions. You can request to join here, and again, that is called Wealth and Rentals. And I would love to talk with you. If you have a situation you need guidance, I'd love to talk with you and help talk you through solutions and options for you, or also through your portfolio, through your financial situation to help you get to the next level. We do a lot of research before these calls. You'll have an intake form that you're going to fill out that I review before we hop on, and that 30-minute consult call is only $125. This is a huge chunk of what my day is during the week, and I love talking with people, talking with all of you, and helping you come up with your strategies. We also have our mentorship program. I'm not going to focus on this too much here. You guys probably already know what this is. We do have a few spots available, and it's really just a wonderful group of people, like-minded, who help each other excel on a fast-paced real estate building journey. You can stay with us on all the social media channels to stay up to date on upcoming events, both live and virtual, as well as our tours and other opportunities as well. And then, of course, all of these webinars post to our podcast channels along with other things as well, so that you can listen to those on your drive to work or while you're working out or whenever you enjoy doing that. If you're not on our mailing list, that is the easiest way to stay up to date on everything that we are doing and also have available property opportunities sent to you. And you also can join our texting list for the same. If you still have questions, you can contact us, info@slaughterinvesting.com, visit our website, slaughterinvesting.com, or give us a call. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend, and I will see everybody soon for our 7 strategies for building your portfolio with insurance. Thanks so much.